Hi, welcome back to Do Fix Differently. In this episode, I want to tackle scalability. Lots of people think that in order to be able to scale your connectivity process, actually it just means more people. Those people tend to be offshored as well. In this video, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about the two extremes of completely manual, completely automated, and exactly where people should really be aiming for on that particular spectrum. Before I get into that though, I do just want to remind you guys, if you're interested in this type of content, please do click subscribe and the notification bell in YouTube so you don't miss out on anything. So whenever I talk to people about scalability and the need for people in their connectivity process, actually I find that people tend to go to two polar ends of a spectrum. There's one end of the spectrum that says, well, you know what, it's got to be 100% automated. I don't really want to do anything to do with my customers. They should just completely self-serve the entire process themselves and never really darken my door. And then there's the other people who are doing everything manually, entirely manually, in fact. They're grepping log files themselves, they're answering emails, they're working on Excel spreadsheets and stuff like that. And inside of that spectrum, there's actually a huge number of possible points. And so the thing that I want to convey in this video is that there are pros and cons to having people, and there are pros and cons to having technology, and actually the optimum point is probably somewhere on that spectrum, moving towards the automation side. But before I get into that, I want to just talk about some of the pros and cons of people and pros and cons of technology, so that everybody's kind of clear. So in terms of having people, there are obviously a lot of positives about hiring people, right? So there's a great customer service element. People want to be able to talk to somebody, have somebody on the end of a phone, be able to send people emails and get responses back. So yes, you absolutely need people. You avoid some sort of Herculean tech implementation project by just having one more person to be able to do things. You can reuse them for other purposes like production support and things like that. And let's face it, the technology budget and the people budget are always two separate budgets. And sometimes it's easier to convince people that actually hiring a person is more obvious than implementing a piece of technology, even if the person ends up costing far more than the piece of technology. And here we come on to the cons, right? So the disadvantages of hiring a lot of people are extremely expensive, frankly. They also get sick, they go on holiday, sometimes they leave and go on to a new job, and therefore you've got this churn problem. So managing people as human assets is quite an expensive thing to do. Educating them, keeping them engaged is quite difficult as well. So that's the people side. On the technology side, there's lots and lots of positives to automation and use of technology in your connectivity process. The key ones are consistency. So a piece of software will execute things exactly the same every single time. So you don't have the ambiguity or the fudge factor that might go along with a human-based process. Things can be happening in parallel, which is absolutely great. Software, of course, doesn't take holidays, never gets sick. It always just keeps working and doesn't ask for huge bonuses either, by the way. And the final thing that's in the plus column for technology is that it normally has inbuilt tracking in it. Okay, so instead of having to have a human give constant updates about what it is they've achieved that day and try to remember and write it all down, the software should just spit all of that stuff out straight away for you. So you've got great tracking against technology. On the minus side of the ledger for technology, though, there is this huge hurdle about setup, and we see a lot of people who get very concerned about the implementation timelines and effort associated about moving to some sort of software-based approach. We don't want to mitigate, don't want to downplay those considerations because sometimes it can be quite significant. And they also have concerns about things like vendor lock-in. So what happens if I give all of this to a particular vendor and that vendor then raises prices, 25% in 1 year, and suddenly I'm left with that bill because I can't go somewhere else. So the trick is in all of this to work out how you can get the maximum number of pros from these two columns, the people column and the technology column, and minimize as many of the cons as we possibly can. And for me, that is the sweet spot, right? That is the sweet spot on the spectrum. we are talking about a process that has a blend of people and a blend of technology, looking for capture as many of the pros as we possibly can and reduce as many of the cons as we can. What that means is people, technology working together to have great customer service, have somebody there, but to follow a process which is highly structured, automated, and automatically captured. That's the technology side. The churn that you get with individuals or people going off sick, that is mitigated by some of the benefits that you get from greater use of technology inside of here. Tracking everything inside of a system allows other people to step in to cover for anybody who's out sick or on holiday or something like that. It also allows you to get new employees up to speed as quickly as you possibly can. Okay, so a blend of people and technology helps you achieve the level of scalability that you actually want. It helps to avoid some of the downsides. And this really speaks to one of our core principles to connectivity. It's actually principle number 4, automate and integrate, right? You should be looking at all points in time to find software and processes which help to automate and enforce processes as much as possible. That's the way that you get the scalability. That's the way that you manage more things in parallel. It should be looking for anything which is promoting reuse. So you have an electronic definition of your spec, for example, that should be reused in multiple different places, and software helps you do that. And similarly, you should be looking for anything where you have rekeying and look to eliminate as much rekeying as you possibly can. Remove the human from the process, no more rekeying, as much as possible is just passed from system to system inside of the technology. So I hope that's kind of helpful. To summarize, it is not a completely automated or completely manual process. Those are two extreme conditions. That is probably not the right optimal outcome. The real optimal outcome is somewhere in the middle. It's a blend of software and people. Over time, you want to be moving towards greater levels of automation, but understanding that you may never get to full automation because that's not a desirable outcome in its own right. What you should be doing is you should be using the software to automate a process that still involves people as well. And that's how you get the sweet spot. So I hope this helps. Hope you found this interesting. There's lots more on our YouTube channel all about doing things differently, how to create efficient connectivity processes. So please click subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you in the next Do Things Differently video.